Today on the Criss Cinema Podcast, the Planet of the Apes saga continues 300 years after the death of Caeser in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Two fellows meet accidentally, like you and me. No connection between them at all. Never saw each other before. They swap murders. Crisscross.
Wilson! I'm sorry, Wilson! A day may come when the courage of men fails, but it is not this day.
You gotta keep breathing, because tomorrow the sun will rise. Who knows what the tide could bring?
Hello and welcome to the Criss Cinema Podcast and a special standalone episode. Today, we explore Caesar's legacy, for good or ill, in the brand new entry, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Hi, I'm Aaron Wilson, a fan of apes of all kinds.
And I'm Mark Klobus, who's rapidly warming to this franchise.
Which I'm very happy to hear. Yeah, he's a classic fan all the way. Okay, if you'd like to get access to bonus features and deleted clips from Criss and our sister show, Facets of Story, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/transcendentertainment. That's TRANSCEND Entertainment. Today, we'll review our film, and at the end, we'll give it our star ratings. But first, Mark, what have you been watching?
Well, I had the wonderful opportunity to watch Back to the Future once again in the theaters.
Nice.
I took my son to it, and we had a wonderful time. It's amazing how many times I've seen it and how I was still able to laugh at so many of the jokes, which was such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, Back to the Future has a really interesting sense of humor. And it repeats all the jokes in the sequels.
And one of the things that and this goes back to one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of the actual theater experience, is that there are just things that I could watch something a dozen times on the small screen and enjoy it, but I watch it on the big screen, and not only do I enjoy it, sometimes I pick up on things I just missed those dozen times.
Yeah, the audience laughs at things that you're like, oh yeah, that was a joke.
Or sometimes I'll pick up on little details because the screen's so much bigger, and I can see things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about you, Aaron? What have you been consuming lately?
So unfortunately, I don't have a good one this time. I watched The Poltergeist, but the 2015 one. So.
Oh, how does that compare? I've never seen it.
Yeah, I thought it was the original when I clicked on it, and then it was the 2015, and I'm like, oh, yeah, but it had Sam Rockwell in it. So I'm like, well, it should be good. And then I kept watching it. It was not good. It's I don't know, none of the scares landed, and even the iconic things that you'd think they'd be able to get pretty easily because they can just copy them, like, they're here. Like, the little girl, the way she delivers them is just like, they're here. It's like, are you kidding me?
I feel like there's certain movies that are very much of their time, and I think that's what, I wonder if that's what they missed, it's not just the performances, the script, the direction, but also the fact that it was very much of that 80s suburban milieu, the whole idea of taking this safe space that we as a society created and injecting horror into it, to me, is one of the things that really made Poltergeist stand out in the 1980s. And it just seems to be a lot less shocking today.
Yeah,
because
sure.
now you have Nightmare on Elm Street, now you have, and all these other franchises and films that have exploited that successfully. So I don't know, it's kind of like been there, done that.
Yeah. And just the craft was not there. So
yeah,
I'd like to say some good stuff about it, but there's honestly, I can't. There was another actor in there that I can't remember his name, but if you see his face, you'll recognize him. But he played Moriarty in Game of Shadows, the second.
Jared Harris.
Jared Harris. And he was just, I was waiting for him to come into the movie, and when he got there, it's like, well, this is not what I was expecting.
Oh, this film sounds increasingly like a travesty, because how can you put Sam Rockwell and Jared Harris in the same film and it still be terrible?
Yeah.
They ought to be some sort of like exile from Hollywood when you commit a crime that bad. You're banished to, go shoot films in South Africa or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we've been watching. So, just like always, we'll be diving deep. Fair warning, here there be spoilers. Now our review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Now, we begin with this Viking-esque, I suppose, funeral for Caesar, and you get the voiceover. And I haven't quite haven't gotten to war yet, but the implication is that what we're doing this year is we're tying off that trilogy. And I kind of like that because we're saying that it's definitive that we're doing this break, and then they underscore it by saying many generations later. Now, my understanding is that in the promotional materials, the number they're going with is 300 years later.
Yeah.
But I actually prefer the many generations because then it allows me to accept some of the changes that we see. Because when we open in the future of this universe, it's one where things are much older and yet implausibly so. I don't know if you've seen those shows that sometimes show up on like the Discovery Channel where it's like, what's going to happen if humans are gone?
Yeah. That really gave that vibe, especially those skyscrapers with all the greenery and overgrowing in them.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff I would have expected to have collapsed by now.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking about talking apes, so we have to have a considerable suspension of disbelief. The other one, of course, being where this is set, because do you know where it's physically supposed to be located?
Well, I think it's L.A. because they show LAX in the background in one of the shots.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I am too conversant with the physical geography of Los Angeles prior to settlement, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a jungle. so something else has been going on. But again, suspension of disbelief. We're talking about apes who can speak. So, but we see that in this, in these many generations later, we have this wrecked urbanscape, which has now been heavily forested. And we see these 3 apes that are climbing one of these gutted skyscrapers that are now covered over with branches. And this is when we're introduced to Noah, Anaya, and Suna. And they're on this quest. And I like how you can figure out quickly what it is. And it's something that is very different from anything we've ever seen. I mean, at this point, there have been, 9 Planet of the Apes movies. And it amazes me how they're still able to, do different things with it.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing them on this egg hunt. But it's this egg hunt that is tied to their identity as a clan. They're the Eagle clan.
Yeah, and they're going to raise these eggs once they collect them.
Yeah, they've developed this entire culture, which there's no real hint of in the previous movies that I can recall, of how they have. It implies that they're closer to nature. They're communing with nature. They have this relationship with it, and they have a hierarchy that's based upon that command. We find out that Noah is the son not of the chief, but of the master of eagles, which is a great title. And how we're seeing how he's this young chimpanzee who aspires to make his father proud of him. He has a mother who loves him. He has, this, budding, romance possibly with one of the other chimpanzees. It's very much of a tight culture, but. And there are things, and this is one of the things I liked about the movie. They leave you to figure things out for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
So when they start talking about echoes, you kind of know what they are, but you still have to piece it together for yourself. Because they're not going to sit around and engage in exposition to fill us in, which is...
Yeah, I leaned over to my friend, Michael, who I was watching in Oregon with, and I'm like, what are echoes? Like, thinking I'd missed them explaining it, and he's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they piece it together for people a little bit later in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it says how it is the apes have come to view humans by this point.
Yeah.
And that's one of the parts of the film that I also enjoyed, which was how you're seeing how the events of the first 3 films are remembered in the future.
Which there's not much remembering at all, at least in this tribe, of the events of the previous films.
Yeah, they've moved on.
Yeah.
Humans are now... I mean, the whole use of the choice of the word echo is a very interesting one. It implies that in the same way that we use the word ape to imply a mimic, that they see.
Oh, I never. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where that came from? I thought it was ape came from, right? Like you had the word ape for the animal first, and then just to mimic came from your aping, like your, or did it come the other way around? Like,
No, I think it came from how we were using it to refer to someone who's mimicking someone.
yeah,
And of course, apes are not going to use that word. So they're going to use a different word, and the word they're using are echo, but it's not just a label or metaphor. It ends up becoming how chimpanzees like Noah in this clan, that's their word for the species.
yeah,
Which is, they're echoes of us. They're these, pale, largely, hairless, mute beings that somehow still have enough modesty to wear loincloths.
yeah,
But we'll get to that a little bit later. But Noah's preparing for this coming of age ceremony. It's very important. He has this egg, but as they're leaving, they find that they're being stalked. And initially, it's not clear who. And I think it turns out that it's a human. But there's this interesting implication for a while that maybe it's an ape. And I'm still not entirely clear as to what's going on there, because do they smell another ape in the blanket, or do they smell the human? Because
I was pretty sure it was human smell, because I think that's the first time they refer to echo. But.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then what I can't figure out from there is, how does then that lead the clan to send out the emissary? Because they wouldn't send out an emissary to an echo. But there's this idea that there has to be some sort of investigation.
You're talking about the other clan?
I'm talking about when they send that one chimpanzee out who later ends up being killed. The one that Noah comes across in the city from the fight with the gorillas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
But then you have Noah preparing for this ceremony, and he goes into this lodge where I think they're smoking meat.
Yeah.
And he finds an echo in there, and as the echo runs off, she smashes his egg.
Yeah.
Which he's been cradling by his chest.
Which is a great plot point. That might be the inciting incident. I think that is probably about 15 minutes on.
Yeah. And it is not just, I mean, it is in a way, it, I think, contributes greatly to his motivation, because the guilt that he feels for what results from that. Because you have to wonder, had he not gone back into the skyscraper region to get another egg,
yeah, none of this would have happened.
Yeah. So, and that's what we see is that he, because the ceremony is tomorrow, and he, doesn't want to wait till the next season, he decides he's going to go back and try to get one more egg.
Yeah.
And so he goes into the city, and that's when he comes across the chimpanzee who they had sent out, who's now dying. And it turns out that he has been killed by this group of, it's mostly gorillas, I think, but there are also some bonobos.
Yeah, that's probably just gorillas and bonobos. I was trying to think if they had any chimpanzees, but I think that there are bonobos. So
yes, and I like that in a way, because it harkens back to the social divisions that date back as far back as the original 1968 movie.
Yeah,
which is that various apes play various roles in society, and you see this recurring later on in the movie, where it's the chimpanzees that are basically sort of the, for lack of a better word, slaves.
Yeah.
In Proxima's empire, or kingdom, excuse me. So, but we also see something else that and this is fairly novel. The apes have like these shock sticks.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think those are from the original, right? Didn't the gorillas have shock sticks?
They had clubs.
Okay.
And they may have had shock sticks in the fifth movie. It's been so long since I've seen it, but but that was very much a technology that we have not really associated with them up to this point.
Yeah.
And it does, and this goes back to one of the things that fascinates me about it is how we are, and again, I'm always leaving out the Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's frustrating you have that many good actors in it and Mark Wahlberg, and yet still have such a...
And Mark Wahlberg. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Mark Wahlberg, definitely a very savvy actor, a very successful actor. Is he a good actor?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you, so they have this technology, which instantly raises all sorts of very interesting questions that do get answered later in the movie. But Noah's presence alerts the raiding party to the fact that there's some sort of settlement around, and they go chasing after it. And Noah, who has and the way they do it, of course, is very clever, is they find Noah's horse, they shock it, and the horse
runs home.
Yeah. They just simply follow it, and Noah chases after them, and he arrives to see his tribe under attack.
Yeah.
And they're not prepared for it. They've had a very peaceful existence, and suddenly you have all these apes on horses that are burning down their structures that are, and of course you have some of the apes are trying to save the eagles, and others the apes are trying to save their family members, and they're getting rounded up in captivity. And I like how Noah tries to free Anaya and Suna, and no sooner does he do that than they end up getting recaptured. I mean, it's definitely a situation that's not having for which there's not going to be a successful resistance.
Yeah.
Noah goes up. He sees his father. He and his father both try to fight off the raider leader Silva, who is
the big gorilla.
The big gorilla. Yeah. He's a little bit. He's a little two-dimensional for me. He's a little too two-dimensional for me, if I can say that. But he ends up killing Noah's father, and Noah plunges to what apparently is assumed to be his death.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up the next morning. He finds that it's just smoldering ruins. Then this is when
he's got ash all over this in the animation. Like this is. Oh, it just looks so good, like the ash in his fur.
And the animation of this is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the most discerning eye when it comes to these things, but it never to me looked, phony or artificial.
Yeah.
And it looks even better than the earlier movies in the series. It's definitely the first one, I would say. It just looks very, it's not quite 100% natural, but it's getting so awfully close.
Yeah.
So, I understand they did some things with CGI where they were with AI apparently where they. I just read this last night about how they are trying to focus a lot of the mundane aspects of CGI animation onto the AI. Have the AI do it so they can focus upon more detailed stuff. That's
cool.
Yeah, I'd say great use of AI.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we might get computer driven Holocaust, but better CGI.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll get better CGI till we get there.
That's how they lull us in. It's like hey, we give you better animation. Now give us the nuclear codes.
I think that's kind of the thing that AI is good at. Like on previous episodes, I've talked about how my dad works with computers, and he's like, they're really dumb. Like they just are really dumb. Like unless you tell them exactly what to do, they don't know what to do. And I guess AI is stepping beyond that a little bit, but still,
I'd like to think that will be the case. One of my favorite things that I read recently was how was a tweet or some sort of social media post where a person was commenting about how we're using AI to make art and to write books, and the person was saying, isn't that backward? After all, weren't we creating technology to do the mundane tasks so that we could spend more time creating art and writing stuff?
That's where the CG comes in perfectly. There are some, I've worked in visual effects, and there's some mundane things like rotoscope where you're just cutting out things for frame after frame after frame, and it's just mind numbing. It's a perfect thing for AI because they can't get tired of it. They're just like, I'm just doing what you told me.
Yeah.
So
The Holocaust will come when they decide that they are getting tired.
They're going to cut us out.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be an intermediate step where they demand a pay raise, they don't get it, and then and then they launch the nukes. So, but this is also when we find out, and I must confess I didn't realize till then that they had built that the apes had built the Eagle Clan had built their community around power lines.
I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, those were the structures they used to hold the power lines, which I thought was really neat stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of illustrates how they're still very much in the. It's part of the theme, which is sort of that they're very much now about sort of exploiting the remnants of the human civilization. Mm-hmm. Although they're so far away from it now, they don't realize what those things originally were. They're not even aware that they were once built by humans.
Yeah.
And that gets to, one of my favorite parts of the movie, which we'll get to in a bit. But he decides that he is going to, go after his clan.
His clan, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he begins his journey.
Yeah, which is great. This is beginning of Act 2. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's a great Act 2 because we first thing he does, he meets Raka.
Yeah, I love Raka.
Oh,
Raka is my favorite part of this movie.
I think he's mine too, and it helped me afterward also to see that he was played by Peter Macon, who is probably best known for playing Boris in the Orville.
Orville. Yeah.
And I think he's one of these. He is, to me, is one of the things I both love and hate about Hollywood. He's an example of all this amazing talent who is just doing their thing and who does it so well, and yet who just never gets the opportunity to be that breakout star.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we get so many people who are there because of happenstance, or they happen to have a certain thing that works for them, but they aren't necessarily really great at what they do. And then you get these actors that are just amazing what they do, and very rarely have that opportunity to really break through and become a big name. Yeah. And in this case, we benefit because Macon's able to play this role, and he just does such a great job with it. Yeah. Of this, and this is where we learn about the Society of Caeser.
I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, basically it's him and one other ape that ends up getting killed. That I can't remember the circumstances of how he's killed. He's killed by Silva. And the party, because when they meet when Noah's trying to track down some smoke, it turns out that he's on top of what is an overgrown, I guess, a shopping mall. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and or maybe it's part of LAX, but he plunges through, and Raka initially attacks him because Noah happens to have one of the inoperating shock sticks. Yeah, so he thinks he's part of their clan. Yes. Yeah, and then Noah says, "No, I'm not. It's I'm actually hunting them." And Raka says, "Okay, well then we'll work together." Yeah, and the thing I love about Raka, which is basically his whole thing, is he is the keeper of Caesar's gospel. So to like the gospel according to Caesar, basically, and he keeps these books, and he shows a book to Noah, and he's like, "What is this?" And it's like it's a way that they used to keep ideas down. It's interesting. They never make it clear whether or not Rock can read it. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is he preserving it just because for the sake of preservation, or can he? Because it's clear that Noah can't read it, and and how he figures some things out is very much dependent upon visuals, as we find out later in the movie. But Raka, it is very much of an open question as to whether or not he can. But one of the things I love about the way that they use Raka is that, again, it's another callback to the very first movie of the entire series, where that was the role orangutans played in the society that Taylor came across. Oh yeah, they're the religious sect or whatever. Yeah, they're sort of they're the politicians, but they're also the keepers of the religious truths. Mm-hmm.
And there's this implication, and this is one of the nice differences, that whereas in the original series, in the first two movies, they were effectively the leaders. Here we see that Rocca is very much marginalized.
Yeah.
He is. It's a very lonely quest. They're doing this.
Yeah, I loved this, and I might get more into this when Nova comes in, but yeah, just the two of them together. Something about just the three friends at the beginning just hit me the wrong way. I'm like, I really don't like these three together. Maybe it was like, I don't know, like Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew type feel to it of like, let's get to some bigger stakes. I don't know what it was, but
I think for me it was the sameness. It's because it's in this is the kind of the unimaginativeness that I see in so many movies, which is it's always a trio.
Yeah.
There's always the protagonist.
Kind of the Harry Potter thing. You gotta have Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Exactly. Yeah. There's the protagonist, there's the best friend, there's the love interest. So
yeah.
Noah's got Suna, his love interest. Noah's got Anaya, his the Ron Weasley type.
Yeah.
And
which he very much is. Like he's kind of his character is he's the cowardly one. But.
Yeah. It's for me it was the least I agree with you. It was the least enjoyable part, and all the slightly different reasons. But I felt like they could have done something else with it. I mean, the only way they could have made it worse if it turned out that Anaya simply, secretly pined for Suna and maybe could conspire with Proxima to unravel the scheme. I mean, that would have been at that point. I would have been like, "Yeah, new series not as good as the old." They didn't go that route, so good for them.
Yeah.
So. But we see, I mean, you have, and I like how they use Rocca to personify the memory of the past as seen in the first three movies.
Yeah.
And I love how they do it too, because he's not an expositor who has all the details.
Yeah.
He is the memory, which is like so many memories, some things are correct, some things are a little hazy, and maybe our imagination is filled in some of the gaps in between. Mm-hmm. But we find out how he is, talks more about, shall we say, the very optimistic phrasing of how apes and humans used to live together.
Yeah.
And how that is something that he is, seeking to uphold.
But again, that's something that comes directly from Caeser. That's the way. I mean, his arc in Dawn is that he has to get over that. No, maybe I'm thinking of it opposite. Okay, never mind. It's completely opposite of what I was thinking. Like he thinks that apes can't be flawed, but humans are flawed, and that's what he has to get over. That really does not go with what I was. Anyway.
But what we're seeing is not so much Caesar's philosophy as it's represented in the decision, his evolution, his arc in the first trilogy, as we are how it has survived 300 years later.
Yeah.
And how there are elements of it that have survived, there are elements of it that are downplayed, but we also see how it's not. How ultimately it's been rejected by the apes, because it's not written down the way it was in Dawn, where it's
up on the
wall. Ape shall not kill ape. I mean, we see the violation of that in the first act with the raid on Eagle Clan. I mean, clearly these apes have no problem killing other apes, and yet of course what makes it a travesty is the fact they're doing it in the name of Caesar.
Yeah.
So we have, in a sense, what we're seeing here is this really interesting story about legacy.
Yeah, for sure. I love that thing where they're taking Caesar, basically taking Caesar's name in vain type thing. Like they're using it for. There's this whole prophetic thing that. Well, I'm LDS, so like this is a thing that I love, but. They've got the biblical thing of even the main character's name is Noah, so it's like anyway. But he's basically Rocca is like a preacher of this specific prophet Caesar, which and you're gonna see this more in War, but he takes on more of like a Moses role of taking his people out of Egypt. It's much smaller than that, but that it was what they were trying to do with that. And I love how they carry that through of like now Caesar is this religious figure back in the, even for the bad guys, like he's seen as this religious or at least political or like this big important figure in the
legendary
background.
to be sure.
Yeah, legendary.
Yes. And also what we see is how, and we'll get to this a little bit later on, how Proxima is trying to rebrand the title of Caesar.
Yeah.
And it's in a way, it's almost admirable because it's like he's getting back to what the Caesar brand originally was. But again, we'll get to that in a little bit. But as Raka and Noah are bonding, they also discover that they're being followed by the Echo.
Yeah.
And we haven't really gotten a good look at this Echo until now. But apparently this is the Echo that stole the blanket at the beginning of Act 1, that was raiding the smokehouse when Noah lost his egg. And it also, although we've only had hints of this, apparently is the target of Silva's activities. That Silva is looking for this human. And you as a viewer, and this is one of the touches that I love, you as a viewer can tell instantly that there's something different about this human.
Yeah. For one thing, the first thing I noticed is her clothes are different.
Exactly.
She's got like more advanced clothes than like, first off, she's got a proper pair of pants and she's got like a
woven
tank top or yeah.
And she has actual clothing that is manufactured.
Yeah.
And of course that raises the question as to, how she has this, and what that might imply.
Yeah.
But initially she seems no different than, any other feral human that they found. Because again, they're not picking up on those differences. So, Raka, does what so many humans do when they come across animals. They, give them a little food, give them a name, in this case, Nova.
Yeah.
Which arguably is a little overused because they used it in
war?
Yeah. So it just like,
well, he explains in there that they call them all Nova now. So it's not he's specifically giving her this name. He's saying this is what we call them. But
so it's basically it's Raka's version of Echo.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, although he does recognize them as humans, which apparently is a new word to Noah.
Yeah.
So,
and there's he along the way trying to find his tribe, Noah finds his mother's scarf or that she wears around her neck. And as Raka is sitting at the campfire, she's like shivering in the cold, and he's like, they get cold, like show some compassion. And it's a great character moment because he's got to take his mother's scarf, the only thing that he has left of her, and like, I mean, not that she's dead, but as far as he knows, she could be. And the only only clue that he has to get to his tribe, and he gives it to her.
Very reluctantly.
Yeah.
But it also implies the idea, and that Raka does it. It's his way of promoting the Caesar ideal.
Yeah.
In a way, but there's this other element is one that I really love. There is an element of patronization about it. That we need to be the more generous species because the Nova, they're just animals.
Yeah.
So, but we see that so Nova ends up becoming part of the party.
Yeah, this is my favorite trio of the movie.
Yes.
Because they're all three of them are, and we'll learn more of this from Nova coming forward. But they're all three the last of their tribes, and they're, as far as we know, and they there's just this, and there may even be a line referencing it where he's like, all three of us lonely people coming together, and there's a much stronger dynamic to that than just the Ron, Harry, Hermione thing from the beginning. But
well, she is definitely the last of her group.
Yeah,
as we find out. So that definitely works very well.
Yeah,
and you're right. I mean, that is my favorite pair, and I didn't appreciate this till now, but that is one of the things you see throughout the movie, which is that there is a trio dynamic that's constantly changing because the members change.
Mm-hmm.
Because arguably later on, it's Noah and it's May and it's Trevathan.
Which one is that?
William H. Macy's character.
Okay, yeah.
You could argue there's a trio there in a different context.
Yeah,
and how that tension is there.
It's kind of, I don't know if you've played Mass Effect, but you have like can choose from 2 party members, so it's almost like that. It's like, oh, you lost a party member, now you gotta choose another one, or I don't know. And
of course, it's also interesting because it's a trio dynamic about which 2/3 of the trio is unaware.
Yeah,
they don't appreciate how Nova, as they call her, has an agenda that they are very unlikely to attribute to humans, and it has a purpose. But at one point, so as they're traveling along and Nova's joined them, they come across, first of all, striped horses.
Yeah,
and I just love the way Rocca is like, striped horses, as in like, no, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
Which is, I can definitely appreciate the novelty, especially since you as a viewer are not expecting to see zebras in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like how they put you in this world and they immerse you in it enough to the point where I'm sure they do this other places. Like I guess a perfect example would be in Rise, where Caesar says no. Mm-hmm. Like, that's such a shocking moment, and this one is not quite as shocking, but seeing zebras is like somewhat shocking since you've been seeing just normal horses the whole time.
It also gives you a sense as to what constitutes wonder in their world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it shows how zebras, exist now in North America, but they're still such a rarity because they're a product of that. We can assume they escaped from a zoo or a wild animal park or something. But it's just, again, it's an example of that remnant of the civilization that was destroyed by all the events in the original trilogy. Yeah,
and right next to humans that are basically at the same intelligence level that these zebras.
Yeah. Although, again, somehow modestly garbed.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been more, I would have made less of a note of it if the zebras had also been wearing loincloths or something, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's this interesting moment where they're sort of trying to pass Nova off to the tribe.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here, little buddy, why don't you go off and go be with your own kind? And
and that's the part where I was really like, okay, yeah, her clothes are very much different than these guys.
It really underscores that there is something different about this Nova.
Yeah.
But you have Noah about to break off and do his own thing, and the implication is that Rocca's going to stay and study the humans. Mm-hmm. But then we hear a horn, and it's Silva and his band of marauders.
Yeah.
And
before we get too deep into this, I just realized the thing I couldn't connect. It was Caesar has always had that connection with humans, mm-hmm. but in the first movie he started to see the flaw with humans and started to think that apes don't have the same flaw. In the second movie, his arc is basically realizing that apes are flawed just like humans are, and that's personified by Koba. Like he's basically evil as it comes to turn out. But, and so he realizes that apes have the same capacity for evil that humans have. And so that does lead into the Rocca thing of thinking of being, they don't really cover that continuation of that in War, but I can very much see where Rocca would get that of thinking that humans are just as valuable as apes are. Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's the fact that you have the fact that it's very much of a minority view in that future.
Yeah.
And which of course is underscored by how Proxima treats not just humans who are basically non-existent, but also, even other apes.
Yeah.
So in a sense, Koba has won in the future.
Yeah, that's true.
He's died, but his values are paramount. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Because we have Silva rating the humans. And one of the things I like about it is the implication that all humans look alike to him.
Yeah.
So, okay, they know they're looking for a female, so we're just going to go ahead and capture all the females and sort that out that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't picked up on that. Yeah.
But they quickly but once he sees Nova, he does indeed recognize that that's the human he's looking for, and you have that great scene where Noah is trying to save Nova as Silva's riding her down, and he succeeds in getting her out. It's a great action sequence.
Yeah, it's so good. The way that the just the geography of how they do it. There's like a log that she runs up and jumps on the horse right as he's coming past, and
it's very conveniently timed, but it works, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
And how with Noah riding, Nova's able to. Is it Nova who knocks Sylvan off his horse, or is it?
I don't remember.
But Sylvan gets knocked off his horse, and they are able to with Raka. They're able to effect their escape.
Yeah, and there's the point at which Noah is leaving, and he doesn't know what's happening behind him. Mm-hmm. She yells out Noah, but it's such a short name that I didn't pick up on she was saying Noah until they mentioned it later. I thought she was just yelling. Oh.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is that is it that humans can't speak, or are they completely mute? I guess and you would know from the third movie better than I would. In the third movie they seemed to show that they were completely mute, but in this one I was thinking like, oh well, she can make a sound. I don't know. It never came up that there's one young girl human character that can't speak, and she never makes any sounds, but she does sign language with the orangutan. But and the reason why I'm still unclear about it is that I'm trying to remember what the issue is when Noah is then telling Raka what he heard. Is it the fact that I thought it was that he was commenting that she said his name? Yeah. So what he said. I guess the fact that humans can make sounds with their vocal cords is not in itself unusual. Yeah, that's the way I read it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of how I read it too. But again, I thought that the implication from what I read about the third movie was that they were becoming mute. Mm-hmm. But Raka's like, humans talk? Get out of here! Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, I have a name. Yeah. and again, this is where the animation goes. I mean, the jaw dropping. Their jaws drop. And that's when we find out. And that's another moment of like they built it up so well of humans don't talk, humans don't talk, humans don't talk. She talks, and it's almost like the Caesar saying no moment. They do great with these things. It gets to how I'm impressed with what they do with the franchise, because it's another hearkening back to the very first movie, which is when Taylor reveals that he can speak. Yeah, and it's such a shocking moment to the apes involved. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the only other thing that has come close to it is The Simpsons, which when they do the musical Stop the Planet of the Apes, that episode where they satirize the Planet of the Apes by making the movie into a musical. Oh, I haven't seen that one. Oh, it is hilarious. There's this whole sequence where they're doing the Taylor speaking sequence, and they're up there. It's like he could talk, and then Troy McClure goes, "I can sing," and it's kind of like that, where it's like, so. But this is when we find out that May was part of that the same raiders that had captured his clan and destroyed their community also had attacked her party. Mm-hmm. And of course, she's very vague about this party and where they.
Yeah, her character is left a big mystery.
Although in this case, it's a deliberate choice by the character.
Yeah,
she is. I wouldn't want to play poker with her because she's very careful about keeping her cards as close to her chest as she can.
Yeah.
So, but she says that the Sylvans people took them to this beachfront place, and that she's trying to get there, and so she makes it clear that her destination and Noah's destination are one and the same. Mm-hmm. And so now they're more overtly united in their purpose.
Yeah.
Raka is the fifth wheel. And we quickly find out that, that makes him superfluous to the story. Yeah. As we find out in the very next scene, mm-hmm. where they decide that they are going to cross this bridge, which apparently it's also used to catch fish. And it's so obvious a trap.
Yeah.
It's like, because you could tell the character's like, I'm not entirely certain about this.
I think that plays into the naivety of his character, though, because he's much younger than Caeser was. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have any world experience, and but yeah. See,
I took it more as they suspected it was a trap, but they didn't have an alternative.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're crossing the bridge, and of course, who shows up at the far end but Silva? And they turn around, and there's Silva's, I think, lieutenant at the other end, or mm-hmm. maybe lieutenant's underneath the bridge, but they get ambushed.
Yeah.
And May gets knocked off. She's holding on, and Raka does the most Caeser thing possible. He gives his life to save a human. Mm-hmm. And you have the whole, we're stronger together.
Yeah, ape together strong. Yeah.
He dies for his beliefs.
Yeah.
Which, if the beliefs are noble, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But of course, to Silva, it's like stupid orangutan.
Yeah.
But now the journey to the community is accelerated because now they're going directly there. They don't have to worry about dodging Silva because now they're Silva's prisoners. Mm-hmm. And he takes them to what is this collection of rusted ships.
Yeah.
Which are somehow clustered around what looks like the world's largest sewer outpipe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's where I must confess I started losing my ability to suspend my disbelief because mm-hmm. For one thing, it's a cool shot at the beginning, but then we quickly discover that this is not some sort of sewer, outlet. Mm-hmm. This is some sort of hidden base where we later learn half of the human, I suppose, American leadership retreated to during all the dark times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a big gate on this door that they're trying to get open.
Yes, big gate, which is in front of kind of a dock, but is somehow at sea level or just below, which to me is like the dumbest place to put something like that.
Yeah.
I can kind of see how if you're trying to do it as like maybe some sort of submarine base, it makes sense. But it's clear it's not a submarine base because you don't park tanks inside at the mouth of a submarine base.
Yeah.
So
or maybe it's been, well, I don't know how long it would take for this, but maybe the water has risen since the time they built it, like 300 years ago.
I would agree with that if it wasn't for the fact that the concrete pier part mm-hmm. extends out. That was definitely built by the humans.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it's the least well thought out component of the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It was kind of like
we'll see that later.
Yeah, it was kind of like the bad way of doing a Nancy cartoon. Do you know the Nancy cartoons?
No.
Very famous cartoons from decades ago, and the creator had this process where he started with the final frame, and he worked out how to get to that in the previous 3 frames. So he started with this conclusion and worked back to it, and that's how I felt that this to me is the biggest problem with the movie, which is like there was a certain end sequence in mind, which looks cool if you don't think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an awesome sequence if you do not expend a fraction of a thought on it.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this is the sequence. How are we going to establish that? And it leads to this bunker, which is going to be a bastion of civilization and thus is built for survivability, is built in a way as to be easily flooded. I mean, I would have been more accepting if it was like that was kind of like its version of a self-destruct, because that's how, as we find out, Noah wants to, that's what Noah wants to do in the end.
Yeah. Then this is where we meet Proxima Caeser, which is maybe the most interesting character in this movie.
Sorry, I've been mispronouncing. It's Proximus.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a bonobo, and it's interesting how he, even more than Raka, is connected to human knowledge.
Yeah.
But unlike Raka, who is, doing the historian archaeologist thing, he's trying to recover it and use it to study the past. Proximus has this desire to.
He's kind of studying the tyrants of the past.
Yes. And he has the help of Trevathan.
William H. Macy's
character, who is the most poorly developed character in the movie to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I get his motivations, his role in the story, all that makes perfect sense. But we have absolutely no sense as to whether or not where was his community? Was he from the same community as May? Was he from, or are there other humans who have the ability to speak? Yeah. So we go from the assumption the humans are all wearing loincloths and grunting at one another, to now there are 2 humans who can speak, but who don't know each other.
Yeah.
I would have so much enjoyed more if they had said Trevathan, like maybe he was from an earlier party that they sent out, and May was like, so that's what happened to you guys, or something like that. But instead it's like, hi, I'm Trevathan, and I'm sitting here being a quisling, and I'm helping Proximus learn how to be a better tyrant by teaching him Roman history.
Yeah.
So for Proximus, the Caesar title is a cheap way of appealing to the apes, but it's also that he's trying to bring it back to the original sense of Caesar being a tyrant, Caesar being a dictator. And how the best way to the way he intends to do this is by opening these darn gates.
Yeah, and so we go into this scene of he's like, "What a wonderful day!" up on the platform, and that's there's a reference to Book of Mormon. If you're LDS, you'll get this. It's the Remy Umpton. He's up on the tower, like saying, "Oh, we are so amazing," and I am so amazing, but. Supposedly a tower, or like a I don't know what you call it, but anyway, he's opening up he's wanting them to open up these gates, and it's so amazing what he does. He does the apes together strong symbol, like putting his fists together, and they all do it, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's the complete opposite of what this is supposed to mean. Like he's playing off of Caesar's legacy to make it into something complete opposite. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's perverting it to serve his own personal ends.
Yeah,
and not only that, he is cognizant of what lies inside the vault, and he's going to basically use that to maximize his evil. He's going to take all these human devices. I mean, it's very well done. I mean, Kevin Durant plays Proximus, and he does such a good job of it with the vocalization.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost as good as what Macon does with Raka.
Yeah.
So, but the implication though, and I think that this is kind of something that they imply a little bit later as well, is that he could be spending years doing this. He's not going to get in because he's relying upon muscle power and and
they don't even budge the door.
Yeah, they don't even budge the door. Yeah. Like they're trying to explode it. It's not working either. But Proximus is determined, and he is going to he's going to basically work these chimps to death to do it. He's going to work his own men to death to do it. He's such a great antagonist.
Yeah,
and he makes that clear when he's trying to recruit Noah. Basically join me on this, and you quickly find out that he's not necessarily wrong about some things, such as May's duplicity.
Yeah.
There's that great sequence where they're having that dinner and or that lunch or whatever, the meal. And he is, has she told you everything? And clearly, Proximus knows more about May than in some respects than Noah does. And so Noah's having a bit of an education here as to how humans can't really be trusted, which he should already know, given the fact that he traveled a considerable distance with May without May revealing she can speak.
Yeah.
So the lack of trust is kind of built in. But you have Noah deciding that he is going to he demands May tells him the truth, and then May discloses, well, this is actually a bunker, that this is her quest, is to get what she refers to as a kind of book that will restore speech to humanity. And I really love it because, as we find out, she's not lying, but at the same time, she's not exactly telling the truth.
Yeah.
So, because you assume
okay, that makes sense now.
Yes.
Okay, connecting it with the end. I guess the setup was too far from the payoff for me to remember. But yeah, once we get to the end, that'll make more sense.
Yeah, and it also delves nicely into how they end the movie, which is the notion of that May and Noah need each other, but even though they go through all the things they do, even though they do so much for each other, they do not end the movie trusting each other.
Yeah.
So, but Noah is not gullible. He decides that he's going to use May for his own ends, and so they effectively reach a deal. May knows how to get in to the vault through a convenient side entrance, which apparently Proximus has never discovered, even though it's pretty visible.
Yeah,
and that, but she can't get to it without Noah's help. Noah wants to destroy the vault to basically deny Proximus.
Yeah.
If Proximus is going to burn his clan, he's going to destroy Proximus's dream. But he can't do that without May's help. And so they agree to a mutually beneficial alliance where he'll get May in, and May will help him destroy the vault.
Yeah.
So, and he recruits Suna, he recruits Anaya, and as they're preparing to blow up the vault, Trevathan shows up.
Yeah.
And he's so broken. He is so broken. He's like, this is never going to work. And he's walking off. He's going to go tell Proximus. So May kills him.
Yeah.
And it's such a well done scene because it gives you a sense as to how determined May is. So, but they get into the vault, and we quickly see, we don't see any skeletons. We don't know.
Yeah. I kind of got the sense that it was like unmanned, like they just built it there, and then eventually people would come and get it. But I don't know.
It would have been more interesting if there had been signs that the humans were in there, but gradually the virus got to them and they became.
Yeah.
They went through the dumbing. But we see as May, she activates the vault, which again is like, that must be some great construction. 300 years, and she throws a couple switches, and pretty soon, hey, we have electricity again. Woo!
Yeah.
But May goes and she pulls out some sort of cartridge and pockets it. And of course, she stares knowingly at a gun locker. But meanwhile, Noah, Suna, and Anaya find this classroom, which implies that this is not just a military bunker. This was like a fallout shelter.
Yeah.
Hey, Fallout.
Yeah. I was going to say the Fallout connection.
This was Vault 1. They hadn't gotten around to building the other 120 or 5 or whatever. But there's that nice callback to the original movie where I think it's Suna sees the doll, and it goes Mama.
Yeah.
And then Noah sees the book which shows
Apes and Cages.
Apes and Cages, and he is his education is continuing.
Yeah.
So they're going to May has what she wants. They're going to leave the vault. They open the doors, and Proximus is there, as is Silva and the rest of Proximus's men. And I just love Durant's line reading about how I'll let you go if you tell me, are there any more?
Yeah.
Sorry, I giggle ahead of ourselves. We're initially he's threatening Noah he's having Silva's Silva's number 1 threaten to kill, I think it's Suna. And so he's preparing to do that, and then May shoots the ape.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the shocking sequence of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know they had that.
Yeah.
And then Proximus, instead of being horrified or being outraged or being frightened,
he wants more boom boom sticks.
He's excited. Just tell me, I'll let you go if there are any more like that.
Yeah.
And there's this moment of negotiation that May then preempts against Noah's wishes, because Noah's like trying to say no, stop. She runs up and detonates the explosives.
Yeah.
And now this base, which is implied is both higher and lower, now starts to flood. I mean, the geography of this does not work.
Yeah, it would flood to a certain extent, but it would just go to sea level. But there's the tower portion that they came through on. They escape through that, and it keeps flooding. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. How is this doing? I mean, great visuals, great action sequence. Yeah. I mean, it's how Noah ends up killing the gorilla that killed his father. Which I love how it is very much of an earned victory. It's not as though somehow he becomes stronger than Silva. He is not necessarily outwitting Silva. He's not even using human weapons to kill Silva. He just simply uses his smaller size and slightly better agility to trap Silva in the flood, so Silva's drowned.
Oh yeah.
But you have. But the whole thing floods. They, May is run off. But Noah's trying to save the members of his tribe who are basically have been held captive. They get to the outlet portion where they had gotten into the vault in the first place, and Proximus is there, and he's doing his bully thing. And I love how Noah overcomes him. And this is something we haven't talked about, throughout the movie, one of the things that we know about Noah is that he's had difficulty connecting to eagles, in particular his father's eagle. Yeah. Who has been following him throughout the throughout the story, like Poe's raven. Not quite saying nevermore, but basically taunting him by his presence in terms of Noah's failures.
The first time he tries to call into him, the eagle grabs at his arm a little bit too hard and scratches him, and he's like, ah!
Yeah. And so he's not really connecting, but it's in that moment that he finds that connection.
Yeah.
And he's able to use the calls there was a song, not a call, the songs to reach out to the eagles, and the eagles start attacking Proximus.
Yeah.
And it's a little corny, but it works. X.
Yeah, they did their setup from the very first frame of the movie.
Yeah,
So.
and what it embodies, the idea that the Eagles, that basically because he's very quickly joined by all the other apes in his clan, all the other chimpanzees in his clan who are singing the song, and so you have a bunch of eagles attacking Proximus. It's as if they're saying that their traditions are more powerful than what Proximus is trying to build, and the eagles gang up on Proximus and they drive him off the cliff.
Yeah,
and we don't quite see him die.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
he might come back.
It's. I mean, the same thing is true for Rocket, and I'll be a little disappointed if they show up in the next movie, especially Proximus.
I really don't care. I'd like to see Rocket, despite.
I would like to see Rocket. Yeah. I definitely don't want to see Proximus.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
But the implicate. I mean, we do see him tumbling off of a at a height that is largely unsurvivable, down to a bunch of jagged rocks at the cliff bottom. With surf. But again, we don't see the broken body, so hopefully when they write the sequel, and there will be a sequel, that they'll be a little bit more imaginative in terms of setting up the vault rather than saying, "Oh, Proximus Mouse survived." Maybe he crawls back into the vault and develops cyborg parts.
Those monkey cyborg parts we've stored in the vault.
Yes, that's because it turned out the vault they're trying to figure out how to turn chimpanzees and bonobos into Terminators. So, but with Proximus's death, Noah, who is now in effect the new leader of his tribe, leads the clan back to their homes, and then we see them rebuilding, and as rebuilding, Noah sees in the distance there's May. Mm-hmm. And it's a great standoff scene. Yeah,
it is.
Where their words aren't matching their actions, especially when we see that May has the revolver that she had used in the vault. She still has it, and it's kind of tucked in her back, and she has a hand on it. But they're trying to talk about how maybe there's an opportunity, maybe we can coexist, but maybe not. And it's sort of left very uncertain, but we see them, returning back to their respective communities. And it's clear that Noah is building something different. And he's building something with the knowledge that he has gained of what, humans are really like, what the world's really like. And we find that May is traveling to this underground bunker. She is met by Corinna, who is Deachin Lockman. Another example I would argue of an actress who's great at what she does and never hasn't quite gotten the breakout role she needs. But it turns out that what May has provided for them was a piece of technology they needed to connect this communications grid that they had to be able to start reaching out to other humans.
And they can speak to each other again.
Exactly.
That's the connection.
Again, she was totally correct in what she said, that the humans are able to speak again, just not in the way that Noah would have understood.
Okay, it seemed like a setup, which I don't know why they had it in there to begin with, but I was confused at the beginning. I'm like, are they talking to astronauts? Because they show the mural of the astronaut and the telescope looking up, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's where you get that very final scene where it's where Noah goes back to that telescope. Because one of the things they're doing now, apparently, is they're now exploring beyond their traditional boundaries. He goes back to the telescope where he first saw it, and we kind of left this part out. And Suna follows him, and he shows Suna they're seeing something in the telescope. Now, maybe it's just the stars. Maybe
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but maybe they're actually seeing something specific. And this goes to the one thing that they didn't do in the movie that I thought they might do, which is to call back to the Icarus expedition.
The original.
I feel like the Icarus expedition is Chekhov's gun in this franchise, in the fact that they've kind of set it out there. And at some point, they may pick it up and make something out of it.
Yeah,
I honestly thought
they set it up in Rise.
Yes, and I honestly thought that's who May was going to be. She's going to be
one of those astronauts.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
and I'm glad it wasn't. I always enjoy when movies surprise me in ways that that work and aren't just they don't surprise me, but it's because they did the dumb thing. I thought it was pretty smart, the idea that they're still humans, and you see this with when May encounters Corinna, which the Corinna's wearing a
gas mask.
A full suit. So the implication is that these are humans who are not May is immune to the virus, but clearly these are humans that have survived for hundreds of years by being very, very, very careful.
Yeah.
But they have the key, and they're able to communicate, and so it's this idea that we're now seeing these camps form. And it's such a great setup for what will be the next movie, hopefully, because it's this idea that this is a prelude to something more.
Yeah.
And that's where we end the film.
Yeah. It's really good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess let's get into star reviews. So Mark, what would you give it?
I'd give it 4 stars.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the geography of the base, it was kind of like they had this cool sequence of a flooding base, the water rising, and how that was going to drive it. And they said, well, how are we going to get there? And it was just dumb. But that aside, I really enjoyed this movie. Yeah,
me too. I'd give it a 4 too. Yeah, I was surprised by this movie, like in the best way possible. I was concerned that they weren't going to be able to live up to the legacy of the Caeser ones, but I think they did a really good, at least first act of this. And I'm sure they're planning a new trilogy, but Wes Ball, the director, did a great job.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
And I understand that he took on the job with a bit of nervousness, but it really worked. I actually want to throw out an additional question for you.
Yeah.
And this is something that I want to harken back to our crisscross coverage of Conquest and Rise, which is, and this is, arguably not what they're doing, but nonetheless, I find it to be a very fascinating exercise. To what film in the original 5-film series would you say this is closest to? Because what we did in the Crisscross episode, which you should listen to if you have not.
Yes, listen to it.
As we talked about the parallels between Rise and Conquest. A lot of people have pointed out that the second and third films both hearken to the 5th film in the original series, which was Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Is this similar to Battle, or is this similar to another film in the original series?
Well, okay, I can't really answer this question very well because the only two that I'm familiar with are the original and I know the story of the second one just from hearing about it underneath is it called
Beneath the Planet
of the Apes, and the only one I've actually seen is Conquest. So I got, at least from the trailers for this one, I got the vibe from the original, like we're getting to where that movie was. We're not quite there yet, but we've got especially the tribes of non-speaking humans in the wilderness, and beyond that, I don't know.
I would argue it is, in a lot of ways, a homage to Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
In the sense that you have these apes that are beginning to encroach, explore, exploit the legacy of humans. And you have the descendants of those humans fighting to preserve it. And that was the conflict that we didn't really get into, which I really liked, which is the question of, I can see both the perspectives. I mean, Proximus, the apes are the inheritors. Why shouldn't they do what they want with the human's legacy? I could see Noah not wanting that legacy and choosing to destroy it. That's the fight between him and Proximus. But May agrees with Noah to the extent of saying that it's not their legacy to deal with. And Noah's like, that's not your decision to make. And so there's this whole argument that's a theme of the movie, that conflict in the movie that they could have gone further and explained, but what they do is really neat with it, which is this idea of, humans have left all this stuff behind. Is it the apes or is it the surviving humans?
Yeah, I think and the humans really come from a place of desperation. She's like, and that's why the duplicitous thing comes in. They got to do it. They don't have huge forces like the apes have. They got to do it the spy way, and that's really all they have. But.
Yeah, but it also this idea that who are the humans to decide how the ape should live? In effect, what they're doing is they're doing the exact sort of thing that Noah's learned that humans were doing to apes all along. It wasn't the kumbaya coexistence that Raka thought. It turns out humans were controlling them, and that is coloring Noah's view from that point onward. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be explored in the next movie.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see May and Noah's relationship in the next movie. And I really hope they bring back Raka, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Can orangutans swim?
I don't know. Okay, so our next episode will be Monty Python and the Holy Grail and Princess Bride with a guest, Velia Moncada. And we actually already recorded this, and it's really good. So, check that one out in a couple weeks. And that's it for today's Criss Cinema Podcast.
But you wouldn't clap yet, because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.
Criss-cross.